You're tuned in to Porch Talk with Rev Pat, where raw, real talk rules. So sit back and relax with that delicious cup of coffee or tea or your favorite glass of wine as Rev Pat delivers real, transparent, and raw conversations about all things life. Let's get started.
All righty. Welcome. I'm Rev Pat, and welcome to Porch Talk. It is such a blessing to have you with me on this day. I am interviewing Mr. Mark Carroll, one of my favorite men outside of my honey. And I just am so excited to have him join me today. We're going to be talking about just fatherhood, all things fatherhood, the joys, the ups, the downs, the communication problems, the same things we all go through. So I want to I ask you to right now, sit back, grab your coffee, grab your tea, glass of wine, and let's get talking. All right. How are you now? Let me just tell these wonderful folk that are listening in how I came to know you. I hopped on Clubhouse, hadn't been on, was scared to death of Clubhouse, didn't know how Clubhouse worked, had been on it a couple of times. And I said, these people talk too much all day long, pinging me. I can't do this, not all day. I have a life. And I found Mark's room, Food for Thought. And from the very first time I joined that room, I said, this is it for me. Nothing but the word, discussing the word, and this gentleman that was willing to let everybody and anyone that wanted to have a say, so as long as it was based on the word, have their say. So that's how I came to meet you. But I intentionally wanted to talk to you today because I've heard you talk about your relationship with your kids and how you all communicate. And I just wanted to honor you since this is June and dads really kind of get like not that much attention on Father's Day, not like mama. So I just wanted to talk to you about what's it like being a dad and the challenges of being a dad.
Yeah, what's it like being a dad? Well, for me, it's a true gift from God. Because me growing up, I didn't have an earthly father there with me to teach me how to be, a father. But I made a promise to myself when I do have my own kids, I will make sure that I'll be nothing like how I grew up, as far as not having a dad there for me to teach me how to be a man and all the important things that a young man needs in life, and that a father, that only a father, I believe, that can show him how to be a man. Now, again, I told myself that once I have my own children, I'll make sure that I'll be that dad, that kind of dad for them, the best that I can be, and being led by God. Even though I was raised in church, I'll still have my foot in the world as well. So I was kind of doing both. Yeah. So, I did, but based on some of the things I saw, also some of the things I learned from my mom, of course, as I said, being raised by women. I took obviously some of those pieces as well and just kind of put it in there. When I had my two kids, my girl first, my boy second, I just really just went off of what my mom did for me, and also just the little things that I've seen from other men, like on, let's say, like on TV, or like at my job for the men who I knew who had kids. So I would kind of glean, take little pieces from what I saw that was good, and just instill into my kids. So I was one of those fathers that, especially when it came to my daughter, I had zero tolerance. I was a very strict dad. I was a very strict dad, sometimes a little bit over strict. Their mom used to always tell me I'm a little bit too much, but I said, okay, well, it kind of best for me to be a little bit too much and not enough, and then have them go on and be involved in a bunch of, drugs and other things like that. So I wasn't willing to risk that.
I was about to ask you about that, about that father-daughter thing, because I remember you beat me to it, because I already know, no, we're not playing that. So, the interesting thing I love about what you're saying is that you glean the good things from other men around you and incorporated that into being a dad. And so often we have, like, I'm just thinking about young men, they have good men around them, but they don't know how to pull the good. They don't know how to glean, like you said, and say, okay, I may not have a dad in the home with me, but I have all of these other good men around me. And if I just pull the good out of this one and the pull, because there's no perfect example of parenthood. Absolutely not. I'm telling you, it's not. And then you have your son. What is that like? What is that like? Because I didn't have sons and I wanted sons. I had daughters, but I wanted sons. So what was it like to have a son and the
Well,
challenges of son?
yeah, well, honestly, for me, that was that was difficult. That was difficult because for a girl, let's say for a girl, for me that was easy because again I was raised by women, so I knew how to nurture her as the girl. But for my son, that's a little tougher because I had to I had to show that extra strong, tough love because I don't really know how to really do it.
Hmm.
So I just had to go on just my male instinct. And also too, like I said, I kind of pulled from other men that I saw and trying to take goods from that. So you know what? I still wanted to do it kind of my way. But like I said, my son, he was a challenge for me. Well, I think he was more so for his mom, but he's a challenge for me in the sense of um, from the day he was born. I would say from the day he was born, he was a fighter. Um, I will say the first day of preschool, from that very day all through up until uh, his 12th grade year, it was a challenge for him in school. He wanted to always listen. He wanted to do things his way. Um, he was very boisterous. I'll say in this way, like his mom. His mom loves to talk, and so does he. I'm like really, but I thank God for that part because I'm a you know I feel according to my wife and according to my kids, to a lot of people who know me actually know me. They say they tell me I'm a gifted listener. So I love to listen. I love to hear that part I got from my mom, my sisters. Yeah, that's how they raised me. So I took that and instilled it into my son as well. But like being a father to him was hard for me because I don't really know how to be a father. So I just went off of instinct. I didn't want to instinct because I could again just glean off other men who I saw, took the good, and I was like, okay, that's not good. So let me take that and just put it in here and just kind of see how that works. But on my son, I was the hardest one. I was the hardest one. Yeah, him and I went through a few battles, especially in his late teenage years. But yeah, for me it was hard, but thank God that um, there was never any abuse of any kind. There was any kind of no kind of drinking or smoking or anything like that, and no gang activity whatsoever. It was just that, yeah, I'll just say it. I was overly strict on him, overly because like I said, I didn't know, so I went by just what I knew, and of course him and I obviously talked about it later on. Right now he's 31 now, but yeah, raising him was hard for me because I didn't really know how to. But again, thank God that that he kept me in a way that I didn't go overboard to really direct my son in the wrong in the wrong on the wrong path, I would say.
Look, let me tell you, I've had that conversation with my girls. That the apology. I'm so sorry if I didn't get it right, because, and I had the example of a mom, but I still knew there were things that I didn't get right or things that I was trying to do because I was a single mom. So I was mom and dad. So I was like coming down hard. And when they got older, I was like, hey, if there was something I didn't do or something I did wrong, I did the best that I could. And they were like, you're a great mom. And I'm like, oh, y'all didn't think I was crazy. Okay. So I think our children appreciate it no matter how old they are when we admit, I didn't have it all together. I was just doing the best that I can because nobody gave me a handbook on this. And I think they appreciate that, being honest about that. Um, when you think about that, how do you think you're gonna get a second chance? Because what do you do when you get the grandbaby? when you get the grandson or the grandson. Your children not gonna like you, I'm telling you, because all that mean stuff goes straight out the window. You forget, you just like, oh no, let her do. So and you get to see it, and I'm saying this because you're not there now. If you're not there now, you will be there. And you'll get to see Mark again through another generation. And you know that you laid a foundation that's going to be a legacy for that child. But I see this other piece, this faith piece that you brought into the picture, and you got a powerful legacy that you're passing on. With all of the things that we may beat ourselves up, I think of all the things that, would you agree with all the things that people say we should leave for our kids? The most important is a legacy of faith, that your children can look back and say, I know my dad was a believer. I know my dad loved the Lord. Would you agree with that? Because I keep having these conversations with people about, leaving all this money to our kids and so forth and on. And I'm like, I would rather my children know that I love the Lord.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. You're so right, Patricia. It is truly important that, especially us as men, with us parents in general, but us as men, leave that proper legacy for our children, because this world as it is right now is just, as you see it, it's getting even crazier, and our kids are going to be even under even more pressure to perform, to have some kind of stability of mind, and also too, especially growing up as children of God, just those of us who have kids who truly love the Lord, they're going to be, I feel, are challenged even more. So I truly believe that the example that I'm putting forth now through my kids are able to see, they'll have an even more stronger foundation, knowing that my dad and my mom were true pioneers for the Lord. They loved the Lord with all their heart. We saw it, we heard it from them, but also to understanding that they weren't perfect. They made mistakes too. They make mistakes too in the sense of, excuse me, they were always real with us. They sat us down and said, listen, this is the real deal. I'm no super Christian. I get it wrong. I get it wrong myself daily. So just know that as you go through life, you don't have to do it right all the time. You're not going to get it right all the time, but just know there's grace there. Just know that as long as you continue to keep God first in your life, you'll make your way right. So my thing is that I continue to hope and pray that my kids continue to see that in me, so they'll continue on with their children. If that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Because I was going to ask you if you could tell your children, and let me ask you, is there a different kind of conversation you have with your daughter as opposed to your son when you're giving that one piece of advice, that one piece of life advice? Was there a difference in what you said to her as opposed to what you said to him? And I would
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference.
There's a difference.
There's a difference. Yeah. Yeah. When it came to my daughter, with her, sat her down and said, listen, baby, let me tell you everything that I can tell you about men. Let me go ahead and break it down to you. Now, I'm going to give you the real. My kids know me as being that way. Let me give you the real. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. Before you find yourself crying behind a man, know who you are first. Before you find the one, be the one first. So this way, when you meet that man that God has bought for you, you're not looking to him to, you're looking at him for your identity, because you already know before God shows you this. You already know that your identity is in Christ. Period. Now, and that was my daughter. And also too, I taught her how to fight and those kind of things too. So she knows how to protect herself. After that part.
I haven't hit now because I'm making notes, because I'm probably gonna preach this. Before you find the one, be the one first.
Yes.
Credit, but I'm writing this down. I'm a big proponent for ensuring that women know their worth and their value. That's a big thing with me. I just got through talking to a friend of mine about that. And that is something that I am going to keep in my heart to share with somebody. Before you find the one, be the one first. Because that is so very, it all ties into knowing your worth and knowing who you are. But let me tell you, can you imagine how many young girls have not heard that from a dad?
Yeah, it's so sad. It's so sad. It's unfortunate, especially I would say, in our Black communities.
Yeah,
for sure. You know, the dads unfortunately who don't know. Again, in my situation, I think that I was blessed to have a very strong mother, strong sisters that kept me off the streets. But unfortunately, a lot of times that's not possible for some of these kids growing up in LA. You know, and of course also too, other kind of ghetto kind of states that kind of as well. But I'm going to speak only because LA, because that's where I was raised. Yeah, it's unfortunate that these young women are all out there doing things they're not supposed to be doing because there's no father in their lives. They grew up with these daddy issues that they have, so that they look to other men to be that for them. Unfortunately, they get led astray somewhere else, and they find their identity in that man because he spoke nice to them. You bought them things or just things like that, just material stuff, and they take that as love, and it's so sad. It's so sad to see that. So my prayer is to continue that, that these young women will find seasoned adult women like you, Patricia, that's going to help them become the woman that God created them to be, true women of God. So that's my prayer.
I'm committed. Now, it might be a little rough. They might not want to hear everything I have to tell them, but that I'm committed to that, because I see the results when they come, when they have these issues, and you're like, man, nobody told you this, nobody gave you I mean, some of this stuff is common sense for me, but that's because I had a mother that did that for me. And then you talk to them, and I had a dad in the household, but my mother did the majority of the pouring into us. But what I did with everything that I experienced in my childhood, the one thing I did see was my dad take care of his family. All of the faults, all of the wrongs, whatever. So that is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want anything less than that, because I knew I had seen a man come in, put his check on the table, and take care of his family. So that was my standard. So when it comes to your son, what was that conversation? Because let me tell you, us women, we had this thing in our head that the conversations are so different between the fathers and the daughters, and the fathers and the sons, because the daughters are warned off of the boys, and the boys oftentimes are celebrated for having the girls. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm just talking real, people. I like a real conversation. That is the truth, and that's the difference. And that's that gap that is just, one's going this way and one's going that way. So, what was your conversation like with your son? I would say, when he began to be interested in girls, when you knew he was interested in girls. Like my grandson, when he comes down the stairs, smelling like put on a whole bottle of cologne, and you can smell him 30 minutes after he leave out. That
Oh yeah. Well, that was almost like a I would say maybe like an hour conversation. My daughter was more like a 2 hour conversation because she was more so she my daughter is pretty much like me. She loves to listen. She sit back and just listen to what you have to say. So talking to her and her had a really even more in-depth conversation, her and I. My son, he was my my son is an extrovert, just like his mother. I'm an introvert like my daughter. My daughter's just like me, introverts. We were kind of sit back. We don't react to things. We sit back and hear it and kind of map it out and kind of see if it makes sense to us. And then we respond. My son, my wife, they just, let's go. So so that conversation with my son didn't have to take that much time. I told him I told him as a matter of fact, okay, you're a male. You are a you are a male right now. You don't become a man until you're out there on your own, with making your own money, having your own home, and making your way. Right now you're a male, so cause like just keeping it real. I told my son, it's so important for you, it's imperative for you to think with your heart and your head, and not that thing,
yeah.
the other thing. So but of course now again I told straight up. And I made sure I instilled in him that men never ever, I'll say no, I said real men of God, never ever put their hands on a woman whatsoever. Now, and I told my son, I'll just again keep it real. I told my son, if I ever hear did you ever put your hand on a woman in any way, you're gonna hear from me. You're gonna hear from me in a whole different kind of way.
Oh.
I made that crystal clear to him, crystal clear. And also told him, I said, don't you go around here and being like your grandfather, Lord rest his soul, dropping seeds everywhere.
Yeah.
All kinds of kids all over the place. No, we ain't doing that. We're not doing that. No, we're not. No, you get it right. You become the man that the God that calls you to be, that leader. God has called us men to be leaders. Let's be that, and then we can go on and do this thing right.
The only life that's we're gonna get this right, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
those conversations, and I mean, our culture, my age, we didn't have those conversations at all.
Yeah.
At all. It was no conversation. You just understood one thing: you better not come here pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you better not make no babies. That's the conversation. That's it. Totally understood. And so I think that generation sort of missed out on what they wanted, because they all wanted the same thing. They wanted the best for their children, but they missed out on the communicating of, I want to see you, I want to see, and not all of them, I'm not saying all, I'm just saying the majority, because I've talked to enough women my age, and none of us had those kind of talks. None of us, it's a rare few that we had those kind of talks. But so I think it's always amazing to hear dads have that kind of conversation, especially nowadays when it's so much going on. Especially that conversation now would be totally different, because now you got to tell your son, when you pull that car over, don't you open your mouth, don't you say a word, don't you do any of that. You sit there, and they have to go, I'm not taking it. No, you sit there. So that conversation now for daughters and sons is so different. Can you believe that? And that really wasn't that long ago. But now you have to warn your daughters about folks snatching them in the parking lot and running off with them, and sons, hey, be careful, you might catch a bullet or a case and you didn't do anything wrong. So if First, before, because I know we got to go, and I don't want, I want to be very respectful of your time, but I need to let the listeners know I am so very blessed to have witnessed what happened in the room a couple of nights ago, a couple of days ago, a few days back, when we had that young man that needed some men to pour into him. And you and Man of God and Pastor and Kevin poured into that young man and committed, made a commitment to be there. So I knew there was no wrong choice when I said, I want to interview Mark, because I listened to how you communicated with your kids, and I knew it was sincere and I knew it was real, but it was on display that night. God worked it where we got to see a village step in for a child. So I want to ask you that night, because we went longer than we normally go. How did you feel at the end of that night? How
Oh
did
my
it make you
gosh.
feel?
I mean, it was a feeling like as if um uh, it's kind of hard to explain. I guess it's kind of hard to explain, but only way I can make it make sense. A feeling of purpose.
Yeah.
A feeling of purpose. It's something that the way I felt is that as if this is truly who I am. This is truly who I am. Knowing that I just affected a child's life, a young man, and just thinking, just hearing about him, hearing his age, I got a flashback of myself growing up and not having that, but knowing that I had the ability to make a difference in another young man's life. It was just, I mean, the Holy Spirit was truly there on full display, and I felt it immediately, and I was just so thankful. It was jubilation. I don't know. It's just hard to explain, but it
Yeah,
felt so normal, right, for me.
it was purposeful. And
Yeah,
it was just like everyone just did what God expected them to do. There was no hesitation. Everyone just
yeah,
did what God expected them to do. But so that was a powerful, I've never been present for that. And I got silent because just the Holy Spirit said that that was a moment for the men, because that baby needed men to let him know
yeah,
that they had his back, not women, because women always rush in and we get all emotional and we just, oh baby, that poor baby. And these, when you don't have a dad, you
yeah,
need men to say, you matter. I've got your back.
yeah,
I'm going to be here for you. And that baby got that. He got that
yes.
night. So before we close, I speak to the young men, the young fathers out there.
Hmm.
What would you say to them? What is the one thing, other than the gleaning from other people, other men to become dads? What would you say
Wow.
to them about the importance of being present? Good. And I'm not talking about being present because you have all the money in the bank and you can give them all the fancy shoes and clothes and whatever. I'm talking about being there in a way that that child looks back and says, you know what? We may not have had everything, but I had my dad and he was there and he showed up.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Patricia? Actually, for these young men, you basically said it already. About to say it again. Is just being there, being present, having a listening ear, listening to what that child is saying, and then hearing them. Because it's one thing to listen, but it's another thing to hear them. Being available, you know, being 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 that that kind of mentor to these young men that lets them know that they matter. Let them know that yes, this thing is hard. Being a man is hard. It's a hard road. You know, guys put a lot on men to be these leaders. But just know I'm here. I'm here for you. It's a lot. Like the main thing, like I said, it's just for us men just to be there, be present, and being putting on our, our again, our listening and hearing ear, because everyone, especially child, needs to be heard and listened to, and that's all the kid, that's all the young man wants, is to have that right example, not a perfect example, but a right example that will show them, those proper steps to take. And that's the main thing. That's true. That's true. The main thing. There's no magical formula to this. There's no real manual on how to be that quote unquote perfect dad or perfect man. All we can do is just glean off of what we've learned ourselves, and also based on what the Word of God says, as far as our character, as far as our integrity. As long as we can instill that in these young men, success is pretty much guaranteed.
Pretty much guaranteed. Well, I think I made it. It's 2:24 my time, so I made it. You're not going to be late.
You're good.
For Mark's.
No.
Man, let me tell you, this, I know I'm going to do, I know I'm going to say, come back on. I know it. But to be able to take this time out of your day for me to interview you, don't know how good I feel. I feel great. Thank you so much. For my listeners, this will drop in June. I know you're probably hearing it now, but there will also be, I'm going to try to get Mr. Carroll back for some bonus content that is only going to be available through Zippy Stream, which is my subscription service. If you're a member, you get to get some exclusive conversations, and I'm going to try to wrangle him again so we can just have some for real talking and maybe do a little bit of Bible study when he's not having to hurry and get through to his clubhouse room, which I'm about to join, so I can support him in there. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being a part of Porch Talk with Rev Pat. I will see you all back here on the porch again next week, Friday, same time. Be blessed, my friends. Be blessed.